Hey everybody, it's Baileywiki and it's October 6, 2025, and it's release day. So this release is October themed, of course, with the new Harvest Calling release. This includes both Harvest kind of autumnal assets and also some witchy Wiccan assets, depending on how dark you want to go with your story. So first off, this is a V13 release for Foundry. If you are on V12 at this point, most modules are moved over and we can't straddle releases for long as content creators. So you will need to be on V13 to be able to access this. Also released today, but free to everyone, are new animated door presets. Again, only available in V13 because that's a new feature. Now this is experimental, but the idea is to be able to add animated doors to any map you already own or might own. Not sure what I'm talking about? Well, check out my tutorial, which I'll link in the description so you can go see it, and feel free to play with them and let us know. Now, a major improvement in this release is how you get to your Baileywiki assets and scenes. You already know that we have macros to launch category browsers for assets and scenes, but moving forward, you don't have to worry about those anymore. You only have to click the Mass Edit button, and it will present you with all the Baileywiki stuff that you have access to, just automatically. So jump to that timestamp. It's super important if you want to see how that works, but it's pretty intuitive. You can't fail but stumble into it, but you can jump that timestamp to see more. Now, we also have upgraded all of our unlimited train spawners to have the super easy and intuitive interface whenever you drop a spawner or on a scene or you double click into it. So definitely play with that. There's another optimization macro out there if you want to optimize those unlimited train scenes after you make them. And one more PSA for Dungeondraft users. There's a new Dungeondraft available. It's like 1.2.0.1, but I don't recommend using it yet. It seems to be unstable, at least in my testing. So I'm giving it another version of fixes before I commit to it. As for 3D, we have a bunch of new props and scenes that you will absolutely love from Swift and Lettuce, which you can see some of it here, and if you jump ahead to those timestamps. And with all that out of the way, let's show you some of the new stuff and get into the release. Be sure to jump around timestamps to make sure you don't miss anything important, and let's get into it. Okay, so where you find content now, this is great, is you don't have to worry about macros, you don't have to worry about category browsers, or anything. Just come over to the Mass Edit presets, click it, and if you are subscribed to 2D, you'll get the 2D asset browser and the 2D scene browser right here. And if you're subscribed to 3D as well, you get both of those too. And that's it. That's where you find literally all the Baileywiki content. Of course, you can always click on your normal preset browser, and that'll bring up your normal Mass Edit like you're used to. So hopefully you guys like that. This is the only place you have to go to find Baileywiki content. You don't have to go into compendiums or anything else. It's just all right here. Now, stuff that you are going to want to know about. I'm not going to go through everything in this release. It's called Harvest Calling. You're seeing the harvest part here. There's also a witch and Wiccan part here in a second. But you're going to like some of these things. In fact, the best thing I think in this whole library, besides the jack-o'-lanterns and that stuff, are these string lights. I mean, these are just great. If you just open up, just do a search for string, and you have all your string lights here. And when you double click it, you can stretch it around and turn it. And these are actually overhead tiles, so your players actually can walk underneath them. And it just gives you this great effect. You can just light up a scene really well. It goes awesome in like street scenes and harvest festivals and stuff like that. So I recommend you check out the string lights and all of the other stuff in this release. There's a lot of set tables now, and these come as prefabs, so you can like move the chairs around, and you can even swap a chair out, right, if you go into it. And you can see like all the other chairs that you have access to. So all this makes things easy for you guys. But as we just kind of scan through, you can see we've got some of these harvest kind of vendor tents. You've got just canopies that have token magic effects already applied to it. And then you've got all these trees. Now, these are overhead tiles. These trees do not occlude, so your players can walk underneath these like dead trees. These ones actually have lights attached to them, which look really nice in scenes. So you want to just turn down the lights. Lots of different fallen leaf assets. And then these trees here are canopies, but they also have bases to them as well. So you can just make a scene instantly. It's sort of autumn. And then we have all of our witch assets, and you can just search witch in the asset browser. But you've got various types of totems and wickermen and new cages that are in different styles, candles. I mean, it's all just really good stuff if you want to make something super interesting really fast. And they really work like plot hooks. These items here, these are all prefabs. You just search for witch and you can find some of these prefabs. And they all have lights on them and you can just drop them in. They're very atmospheric. And, you know, they can just immediately add something interesting to your scenes. And you can see here some of the other things that have lighting attached to them. Right, this is called the mirror tree. Just easy plot hooks. Here's like a grove that's got candles around it. And then you've also got these interiors. So you've got a full, you know, witch's magic shop with lots of things inside for your players to kind of see and explore. And then you've got some separated pieces. These are all like kind of like carved into trees, right? But these are like seance rooms that you can drop in for storytelling. And then we've got lots of spawner tiles. So this spawner tile, if you double click it, it brings up the new spawner tile control. And you can, did you know you can animate these things because they're tileable? You can animate them and you can rotate them around. But you can also, you know, just like you've seen before, you can randomize it and just get like a new map every time. Find something that maybe you want to zoom in or out on and you're ready to go. And of course you can hit the change image and you get all the options for these unlimited terrains. So we scan all the way down here and we find all these great forests with roads through them that you guys can use really easily. I did give you all of these unlimited forest templates, so they just come as template scenes, so you can find them just going into scenes and just type in like unlimited forest and you'll get all of your forest scenes here, and you can just import these scenes and start adjusting them in your world. Again, you just double click it, you can start randomizing everything, and that's your starting point. We won't go through all of the sample scenes this time, but you can come in and look at them. A lot of witch, here's a witch in a swamp. Here's an example of just the kind of atmospheric scene that you can make with these great new pieces. All right, put a little music in the background and you've got yourself a nice little festival for your players to explore. More great atmospheric scenes. Now, one of the things I want to show you from the Nuts and Bolts macro compendium is this new macro called Optimize This Scene. This does require you have Media Optimizer by Ripper, which is a premium module, so you have to subscribe to Ripper for a month to get that. But if you want to use it and you're using one of these unlimited terrain templates, you can, I'll just demonstrate it here. We'll duplicate this template. We'll go to it and the background will load. And let's say that I find a version of this background that I like. I like this like road going through the side of the woods here. Now, this is a very large tileable image that created this. Now, what I can do is optimize this scene. So if I go to optimize this scene, I'm going to execute the macro. Let's go ahead and check off include in the background. And you can put where you want to save the scene to. In this case, we'll just put it in my main world. And we'll go ahead and delete the combined tiles. You can, if you aren't sure and you might make a mistake, use the backup and combine. We'll just use combine for our purposes here. And it's going to work on basically optimizing this scene. So we'll give it a second. Okay, so now it's taken the unlimited terrain tile away. It's replaced the background of the scene with this image. Right? And if you had named your scene something else, it would have used the scene name for that image. And now it's really optimized. So this is super small and efficient for your players to play on versus having to load the entire unlimited terrain tile. So let me know how your mileage goes with that. So that's it for the 2D stuff. Quite a bit in this release, but I wanted to keep it nice and short and sweet for you guys. I'll turn it over to Swift to talk about the 3D.
Hey guys, Swift here to talk about some 3D stuff this month. A few of the maps this month might look a little familiar. There's this new TTRPG called Draw Steel that was released recently by MCDM, which is Matt Colville's company for those who are keeping up with that sort of thing. I've been running some parleys through some of their adventure modules, and so I thought it would be a good idea to make some maps for it. when it comes to games you've not really played before, I usually think it's a good idea to stick pretty close to the author's encounter design. So I made some maps that are the same size as theirs, same number of squares, and with a very similar layout, just to make sure I didn't accidentally unbalance things. Subsequently, this is Rat Raiders, which is just a nice classic country road map. I'm trying out a few things with it that I noticed I hadn't really been doing before, like we've got a hedge here made of tightly packed bushes, or a small stream using 3D Canvas's water objects, and I think they work pretty well. After some testing with a couple of different groups of players, I'm pretty confident that our scenes are reliably performant, even for players on slower hardware, so pretty happy with that. Anyway, the map itself. We've got your traditional country crossroads, of course. We've got the 4 directions it's going off in. And then the 3 general areas. We've got a forested area in one corner, a walled-off field that's slightly above the road in this corner here, and then a field that's a little bit lower than the road here with a hedge to kind of act as concealment between it and the field, since a token standing here may or may not be visible from the road. You might also notice the grid on the floor. A quick refresher for those not familiar. The grid is a shader, so it's a setting on the terrain, basically, and it mimics the scene's grid. So you can turn it on and off by, if we open up the configuration on the floor, and we go into the 3D section into Effects. Let me just switch back to there. And then the Configure Shaders button here at the bottom. So like the grid shader here, you can turn that off if you prefer. And then we've just got a nice gridless map. Or I can leave it on. On a related note, the terrain textures here are applied using a splat map. So if you want to change like the grass, the dirt, or anything, then you can come into the splat map shader here and change texture R, G, or B, respectively. Anyway, if you want to keep the grid, but you think maybe you want to change how it looks, that's just in the scene settings. So you go to Configure of the scene, and then in Grid. Like, say, for instance, the ground's kind of dark here, so maybe you think that a light-coloured grid would be better. You just change the grid colour in there, and there you go. But then if you think, well, light is good, but maybe it's a little bit too bold now, we can turn down the opacity, say, and that'll make it less visible. So, the grid is configurable. I would suggest using it just because it makes it easier on players to see like exactly how far away they are from people. But anyway, that's the Rat Raiders map. Let's have a quick look at the next one. This map here is Goblin Bandits. I made this for an encounter in the same book as the last one, so it may look familiar again. We've got a country road through a narrow pass with raised terrain on either side. These little cliff edges are about 1 square high, so about 5 feet, which just makes it kind of easier to calculate, really. You could either treat this as 5 foot of climbing, or maybe just difficult terrain since it's only 1 square. Or you could do something like a jump test, since it's up 1 square, nice and easy to calculate. Anyway, this map's intended to be a sort of ambush situation, so there's quite a lot of tree cover near the road on either side. This could normally cause issues with visibility, being able to see properly, but we can fix that with another shader. These trees have the clipping shader, so if I move a token in close to them with the clipping shader enabled, the trees kind of fade away around the token, quite you, and so they can easily see like if there's a goblin here or something. I definitely suggest having a look at the clipping shader for anybody who's making a map with a forest or the like. It's in the same place as the other shaders from earlier. Anyway, that is the Goblin Bandits map. Let's have a quick look at the next one. Next up is Goblin Guardians. So this is from another related adventure for Draw Steel, and the basic gist here is that the party are approaching this tomb from this general direction over here, but they find the place guarded by goblins, and a fight ensues, most likely. This map is slightly different to the others in that the terrain isn't using a splat map shader. If I open up the terrain here, and we go into 3D effects, shaders, we can see the gradient shader is what's being used. And basically what this does is it tells 3D Canvas to apply textures based on how steep the ground is. So flat areas are grass, steep areas are stone, and in between we've got this kind of rocky dirt. It means you have less control over the final result, but it also means that you don't need to paint a splat map, for instance. So it might be much easier to use. Overall, though, this is a pretty straightforward map. The way I've been rolling it is that this ledge over to the right is about 5 feet up and maybe is difficult terrain or a jump test to get up. But over to the left here, this is just a steep hill. So at most it's maybe difficult terrain, but it's probably just normal terrain to be climbing up, just to keep things simple. Relatedly, I've included some encounter maps in with this month's ones. For instance, this is the encounter version of the Rat Raiders map. So these minis are all from the 3D Canvas token compendium, so everyone will have them. But they've had their represented actor set to none, because I found that if you try to share a scene with a mini in it that has a represented actor, then bad things happen. So the intent with this scene would be that you would be able to come along as a DM and just say select groups of them and then use mass edit, so Shift E, and then you'd be able to change the represented actor to whatever NPC is convenient at the time. And so you'd be able to have this set up in just a couple of clicks. This is a good bit quicker than setting the whole thing up yourself, but it's not really something we've included before, so I'd be interested to hear what people think of it. If you find it useful, if you have any trouble with it, that sort of thing. There's 4 maps like this in this month. There's the Rat Raiders, Goblin Bandits, Goblin Guardians, and then the Delian Tomb map. And the Delian Tomb map here is definitely one you've seen before, because this was actually released in one of our updates just a few months ago. But in this case, we've got minis laid out in encounters. So generally, let us know if this is useful to you. If it ends up being helpful, that's great. You can let us know down in the comments or on the Discord. But anyway, on to the rest of the normal maps this month. We've got the Underdark Ascent, or Descent if you prefer. This one's a fairly simple map. We're deep in the Underdark, or possibly just on a mountain at night, and the party ascends these ancient stairs running along a cliffside. It's set up so that we've got a flat-ish starting area down there, and then periodically up the ascent it widens out into these larger platforms where we can place encounters or that sort of thing. We've got 2 large platforms on the way up, and then some smaller ledges interspersed in between them. And then if we carry on up the stairs here, dimly lit by all these torches, then we end up at this much larger flat area at the peak, which would be where the Guardian to the world above, or similar, would be. This also ends up being above the starting area. You can't really see it in the fog, but it's a sort of spiral ascent up this cliff. It's a pretty straightforward map, and since it's quite linear, being a climb up a cliff, fairly easy to design encounters for. But anyway, let's get on to some of the maps in the collection by Lettuce this month. So this first one by Lettuce is the Secluded Campsite. We've got several campsites this month, kind of inspired by the campsites from Baldur's Gate. Like this one, as you can see, is away in the woods, and it's in this sort of diorama style. So a lot of these scenes, I think, would be pretty good used as either intermission scenes or as, say, 3D landing pages. We've got a recent video on those, but the short version is you lay out your party's tokens here, which gives them access to their character sheets. Then you can also put a few props out and use Monk's active tile triggers to have them open things like journals, party inventories, maps, and so on when you click them. So it becomes a sort of informational page for your players before and after sessions. So this is the Secluded Campsite scene. Let's have a look at the next one, which is the Campsite Beside the City. Similar idea to the previous one. It's another sort of diorama of a campsite, but this one has the woods thinning out and the wall of a city nearby. The idea with this sort of scene would be to sort of use it as intermissions while the party is travelling, or maybe updating it as a landing page as your party travels across the land. Since it's fairly easy to sort of copy things across, you could have things like the stash and all that sort of thing follow the party as they go. Let's have a look at the next one. And this is the last of the campsite scenes this month. We've got the Campsite in the Underdark, which is, as you would expect, pretty dark. We've got some nice use of lighting in the surrounds here. We've got the flickering flames, obviously, but also things like the light from these bioluminescent mushrooms and so on, just slowly sweeping across the stones as it grows and shrinks in intensity. And then the area surrounding, well, since it's the Underdark, it's very dark, but we've got a staircase descending into the darkness, or a pathway heading off horizontally. There is a lot more space around this campsite, of course, because there's no trees, so you could probably decorate this scene quite a bit more. And I think this is pretty cool to sort of show that even if a party is travelling through the Underdark, they do occasionally need to stop and rest. Next up, we've got a few more of these diorama-style scenes that would be really appropriate for intermissions or the like, starting with this dock here. This sort of map is often symbolic rather than literal, of course, so this could represent the party arriving from far-off lands, or setting off on a ship to far-off lands, of course. The way we've got this set up currently, we've got the crane sort of cast into shadow by the sail of the boat, which could represent something as well, but that could be easily adjusted just by moving the sun around. Overall, a very useful scene. I find that travel like this is a pretty common aspect of many campaigns, so I can see this being used in a lot of situations. Next up is the infirmary, which is obviously intended to be a sort of field hospital type arrangement, but you could of course use it to represent a larger camp. It's snowy as well, as you can see, but since this map is textured using the splat map shader, you can just open it up and change these textures to something you like. And these tents as well have the overlay shader, which is what's causing the snow to lay on top of them. So you could either turn that off or change it to something else if you want this to be in a different environment. Overall, I quite like this one myself. There's a lot of little neat details like the stuff inside the tents, for instance, or things like this map table over here. That's always nice. And of course, it's a reasonably flexible scene. It's called the infirmary, but it could have many different functions. And then last of the normal scenes we'll be looking at today is this Baileywiki tower map, which is the wall of a castle, which I think could be rather evocative indeed, if used as a landing page, for instance. You've got the party arrayed up here on the wall, standing out and looking over the lands beyond, and then behind the wall, down in this area, your typical landing page stuff like important loot, journals, projects under construction, that sort of thing. A kind of abstract representation of what it is that the players are up to in this campaign, with the sort of dramatic picture of them all arrayed on this wall. And all these diorama maps here have been made by Lettuce, so very good work on those ones. On to the props for this month, though. The props this month are very campsite themed, with a bit of autumn flair to them. I found myself wishing I had some more small details I could put into scenes recently. So this month I've got some larger items, so we've got things like these trees over here, these carriages and so on. But we've also got some very small items, like all the way down to some coinage, if you want to get really detailed in a scene. In most cases, though, you're probably going to want to stick to the larger details. So we've got things like campfires, along with various cooking implements, spits for cooking food, pots, pans, that sort of thing, as well as things like tables and shelves for storing things on. Some miscellaneous stuff like bags and sacks, lanterns and candles, cushions and bedrolls, and of course, various different variations on tents. So of course, a campsite is the ideal sort of thing to create with these, but with small details like these, you'd be surprised how many scenes you can find a use for them in. Particularly these carriages, of course. I think carts are probably something we need more of in our packs, so here's 4 variations of this one here. That will just about wrap up our very quick overview of this month's 3D stuff, though. As ever, I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments below or on the Discord, and I'd particularly like to ask how you get on with those encounter maps if you do end up using them. For now, though, I'll see you later.
Okay, for Dungeondraft users, we've got all the stuff that came out with this release. There's a lot of really good things in here, and remember, with all of the new mods that we have access to, you can really do a lot with these things. You can change their color. Works really well with some things that I'll show you here in a second. Like trees, for example. You can make these trees kind of any color that you want, normalize their color if you want to do that. Lots of great paths, like being able to just lay down leaves. These string light paths are awesome. We also have new terrains and textures. These actually have some height map information on them, so you can use them in like the blended mode. I think that's what it's called. Without turning on smooth blending, just you can use them regularly. And then all of the other stuff that you guys can come in here and check out. Then you have all the witch assets, which I won't go through in detail, but there is a lot of them. So check these out. And I show you how to prefab them together. And then we have prefab constructions here. So this is where you like take pieces and you prefab these together just to show you how to do this yourself. And then you can go up a level and you can see what the final thing is. And if you go to show object info, I have a central utils mod that lets me do this. Then you can see what this particular asset is called. Everything in this release is in the Harvest Calling, Base 14 Harvest Calling pack. So you just need to download that pack and you'll get everything in this release. I also put together all of the buildings, like the witches' huts and things like that. And then they are also objects. So if you want to just drop this witches' hut into a Dungeon Draft map, you can just by looking up witch buildings, and you'll get the roofs and other pieces as you like. And then, of course, we also have forest patterns and terrains. These are great. They're like 4K, so you can really use these quite a bit. Remember, you can fade the edges, enable edge blur, and then you can like put these things on top of each other. It's super flexible what you can do now to kind of mix and match these patterns. And that's it. Let me know how you get along with the release, and we'll go ahead and close it up. So that's it. I hope you guys like this release and have some fun with all the new stuff. I really hope the new UI things and enhancements continue to make it easier and easier to use my content and other creators' contents that you're managing through Mouse Edit. And with that, thanks everybody for supporting the channel. Really appreciate all of you. I hope you have a great Halloween and have fun making your maps.